Hi, and welcome to our podcast. We are Hindsight. I am Dina.
Well, technically, it's a Shock Reflex. We don't have a hindsight channel yet.
We will create one. It's so hard to do. One will be created for the purposes of this podcast. Now,
what are we talking about today?
Essentially, we are just going to go into our 2024 wrapped. We've decided to do this podcast because every day is a podcast when it comes to the Hinds household.
We talk a lot.
Yes, we talk a lot, and I think they're very noteworthy discussions. And we've decided to share our discussions with you guys. Just a fun little experiment. So today we are talking about 2024, and earlier we were talking about our marriage in 2024, and it's the first year that we've gotten to enjoy every single holiday, anniversary, and birthday.
In 9 years.
In 9 years. Why is that, my love?
As I spoke about in my channel a lot, for me, this is a growth process. It was only recently that I started taking growing seriously. And for my previous years, I was more focused on making myself more valuable, making money. And I didn't feel like I had time or space to focus on myself. That was never really a priority. But all of those to me were just excuses. I don't think I was ready to do deep transformative work within myself until recently. And I feel like I turned on enough throughout the past 8 years. And I think I'm just ready for a bit more peace within my life.
What I will say is I can't give him all the blame. Part of it was him lowering his resistance, and the other half of it was me lowering my expectations. Now, I'm not saying lower my expectations in a negative sense. I know myself and I know my weaknesses, and I am very rigid. I could be very structured and very specific about what I want and very adamant that I get what I want. But the same strength of this is what I want that I come with, my husband matches it with an equal and opposite amount of resistance. So in order for us to have reached this balance this year where we were both able to enjoy things together, I would say it was him lowering resistance and me lowering my expectations. I think often when problems arise, people don't realize that it kind of takes two to tango. One, I chose him, so I can't really be out here oh no, it's all his fault. Girl, something in you was attracted to this, so, But yeah, I think not forcing things to be the ideal I had in my head, to focus on what I really want, which is not the aesthetic, but maybe quality time, physical touch, attention, that kind of helped.
Also, I wasn't really doing much work this year. I feel like the first part of the year I was working at a company, and that ended pretty sadly. So after that, I didn't really feel like jumping right back into software engineering and working. I didn't know if I wanted to even go back into that field. I think I'll do it a bit longer simply because, I need to eat. I need to survive.
Yeah.
But that created a lot of space for me to really focus on myself. I used the funds that I had from my job early in the year to do some therapy, to go to the dentist, all the stuff that I just put at the back of my mind because I didn't want to do it, either because I was afraid or I just didn't feel ready yet. I confronted those things this year, and I feel like I made a lot of progress in a short amount of time, I would say.
I must interject there and say that this whole concept of him going to the dentist is way more profound than it seems. He just slipped that in there. I've been with this man for 9 years, and he has a severe aversion to the dentist. He would rather let a tooth break and rot in his mouth. He would rather chew on one side for years and then wait till that side hurts and then switch to the other side before he just go get a simple extraction. Like, we aren't talking root canal level stuff, like just normal extraction cleaning. Like, he basically this year confronted everything uncomfortable, and I'm really proud of him. Actually, I am very proud of him for this year. I mean, that being said, the year did start with a bang, where I was having a great little mental breakdown this time last year, because of my master's and working and the chaos that he invited into our household. And that reached a peak in about February, and then from March it was chill. My birthday is in April, so good timing for me. But yeah, it was
Very transformative.
very.
The dentist was like, I don't know, what's that scary clown in the movie It? That was a dentist for me. Absolutely terrified. I don't like needles in my mouth or anywhere near me. But I realized I have to do this. It was getting out of hand, and I did. And yeah,
And that I have to do this, it was getting out of hand, was just the motto for everything he did this year. I need to do this. It's getting out of hand.
basically. Yeah. And then my mother came. And that was another level of surprise and transformation for me. I think when I switched gears and I was like, okay, I'm going to get a bit more serious with myself, she contacted me. And I told you about that earlier in one of my podcasts, that my mother's going to come, and she did. And it was enlightening. She's a lot more different than I expected. I didn't think that she and I had so much in common besides, appearance. But it turns out my father named me Shaquille and not my mother. I always thought my mother was basic, but she wasn't.
And it was good to know that he didn't just manifest out of nowhere. I know, like, nobody comes from nowhere, but if you don't know one of the parents, it's hard to figure out like what qualities are nature versus nurture. And turns out a lot of his qualities, like the curiosity, the experimentation, the open-mindedness, from having his mother here, we realized that those might have been nature and not necessarily nurture. So it kind of helped us to place him in this world and anchor him and ground him a bit more. And I think that would be reflected in his relationships going forward, especially his relationships with women, which has always been a topic of contention over here.
Yeah. So all in all, for me, this year was pretty good. Only thing I'm like pensive about is working again and making more money so I could feel more comfortable. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. What about you?
Me and this year, I'm proud of myself, but I'm proud of myself for finally figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. Okay, that's giving myself too much credit. I really still don't know what I want to do with my life, and that's been the recurring theme for a long time. But at least now I know the area that I want to work in. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I finished my master's 3 days ago, on Monday. On Monday, I finally submitted my final research project, and it has been a really stressful year and a half because that master's was really intense. Hence the mental breakdown last year, December. But it was the first time I did something academically that I felt resonated with who I am. It's the people aligned with who I am, the subject aligned with who I am, the courses aligned with who I am. And I just felt very seen, heard, and comfortable. It was still academically rigorous, but usually when I did anything academically, it was like I was doing it for doing its sake, not because I really felt like this resonated with me. This reflected who I am. I often don't feel reflected in the work that I do. And I know it is a pretty egocentric approach to take. I'll acknowledge that. But I think there needs to be a balance between ego and like non-egoic type of things. And I didn't have a good balance there. So then it made the work I did miserable. And I think if you're doing any sort of work where you're trying to provide value for other human beings, how you do it and the mood that you do it in, it's very important. So when I was doing the whole legal thing, which I think should probably be a whole other podcast about how my husband supported me, financed me, and helped me in some ways through law school, and then completely agreed with me not doing it anymore. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I didn't quite enjoy the purely legal side of things. So this year, I felt like my brain expanded a lot, my worldview expanded a lot, my beliefs and perceptions also expanded a lot. Like, I was in Canada for 3 months this year in Montreal, doing an internship. And during that time, I got to spend time by myself, and I really enjoyed it. I know it sounds blasphemous to be like, I am married, but I enjoyed 3 months away from my husband. I was miserable, I admit, because I was away from my husband. But those 3 months, I read a lot. I got to focus on myself. And because it was reading and working, I was able to kind of practically apply and test the worldview that I was developing. And I think it solidified as I came down to the end of the year. How were the 3 months alone for you?
Honestly, I enjoyed myself. I mean, when she was leaving, I was a bit upset that I couldn't go with her due to like financial constraints, but I got accustomed to it. I got my whole routine again. Honestly, I hibernated. That's the best way I can describe it. When she left, I hibernated. I went to the coffee shop some mornings for like the first month or two. And then it was just like, all right, I'm not leaving the house anymore. And I just stayed home. And I think I developed a new routine in that time she was gone, like in terms of like cooking, cleaning, and just having like a nice little exercise schedule for myself. But I did miss her, but not to the point where it was like, oh, I'm so alone. I need her right now. I was pretty okay.
Yeah, I think one thing like when we first got together, we were long distance. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people say like they can never do, like they can never be long distance with their partners. But as a couple, we love alone time. I think I think we love alone time because the flavor of this relationship is definitely built on self and being strong in yourself. Why do couples end up not liking being alone or separated? I'm not sure. I think we're excellent when we're apart. We work so much better when we're apart because I am not hyper fixated on his actions and he is not hyper focused on proximity. Like he gets, because of his unique personality, I think if anybody's too close to him, that's when he builds up resistance. It triggers his vulnerability issues and his emotional issues and physical touch issues. When we're apart and I'm just living my own life, it flows easier. But also, it's not to say that there isn't structure in the separation. So he had to call me every Wednesday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And my roommates thought I was crazy because, like, you know, they talk to their parents or their spouses every day. But the thought of talking to someone every day just felt a little too much for me. So again, it takes two to tango. I can't say A and say B. I can't be out here like, oh my gosh, he doesn't like contact or he doesn't like connection, when I know damn well that if somebody were to call me every day, I couldn't make it work. It couldn't. No, no.
Yeah. Above all else, why we work so well is that we both value freedom. Freedom is the epitome of our life, which is why we never stay in one job or position for too long. So when she wanted to stop doing law to find something else to do, I was like, go right ahead, because I know myself. If I don't like what I'm doing, I can't do it. I just can't. I think that's an autistic part of me as well. But I have to be curious enough about something to actually give it time and attention. So I can't, I never want people to feel constrained, whether that be in a job or a relationship. I feel like people deserve to have autonomous views, actions on what they want to do and pursue. But that's just me and my love of freedom and independence and autonomy.
I mean, earlier no, recently he told me I often do what I have to do, not what I want to do. And despite my love of freedom, I can do something I don't want to do very well. If I think it's necessary, I can usually put my head down and get it done. And that's why I often ended up in careers that weren't necessarily in alignment, because I can convince myself that it's in aid of a greater objective or a greater goal. So growing up very financially unstable and not being the product of parents who were necessarily like professionals, I was like, I need a professional career. So of course I limited myself to the three: doctor, lawyer, engineer. Even though really and truly I just wanted to be a journalist when I was a kid, I didn't. This whole lawyer, doctor, engineer thing only started coming around when I went to a more prestigious school and I performed well at that prestigious school. I started to adopt the ideals that the school ingrained in me. And around third form, I distinctly remember it being third form, because we had to choose our subjects that we were going to do for CXC, which is like, I don't know, certificates for whoever is listening from whatever version or region you live in. And I was like, okay, I always said I wanted to be a journalist from time I was 0 till 13, 14. But then I was like, what do I do with a journalism degree in a small country? And because I didn't have any idea or framework or concept of what I would do with my dreams, I let go of them. And that was the recurring theme for the next 10 years. From 14 straight through till 24, I was like, okay, I have to do X, Y, or Z because this is the only version of myself that I see being successful or stable, but it didn't work out for me. And I'm now paying the consequences of that, but it's okay.
I won't say she's paying the consequences. The universe, nothing is wasted. So this experience leads her closer to her truer self. And everything is an experience. So even though it might be uncomfortable, and I actually watched a movie called Click by Adam Sandler the other day, and he just fast forwarded the uncomfortable parts of his life. But time is precious, and he missed a lot of important moments within his life because he kept fast forwarding the parts that weren't comfortable for him. Time is just too precious to not appreciate what you're experiencing, even if it's uncomfortable, because you never get that time back. So
I've never watched this movie, and I'm low-key offended now because he didn't invite me to watch this movie with him.
Fair, I didn't watch the movie by myself. It was just a short reaction to the movie.
Okay,
which
so
was
we
like,
have to go watch the movie now.
Yes, we have to watch the movie.
We're going to go end this podcast soon, and we're going to go watch the movie because excuse me. But yeah, I don't think anything is wasted either. I don't regret going to law school and becoming an attorney. It's given me a lot of insight. I think it's severely changed how I viewed the world, though. And I think if I were to be Delulu and believe in fate, I think having a law degree that early in your life changes how you view reality. Like when you have to spend the foundational years of your adulthood reading about everything that goes wrong in the world, from financial crimes to sexual offenses to, domestic violence to constitutional violations to international human rights crimes to to corporate fraud to understanding contracts. It gave me a reality check. Like, this is how the world works. So I don't regret doing law at all. There is no Delulu is the Salulu when it comes to working on the dark side of life. And as I would tell people a lot, like, they don't often think about the fact that when you're doing law, you are dealing with the darker elements of everyday life. People most often only call you when things go wrong. So then you have a great affiliation with what can go wrong. Like, bad employers, divorces, family disputes, land disputes. Ugh, people fight over land way too much in the Caribbean. Vehicle issues, personal injuries, car accidents. And I mean, it's given me a healthy sense of paranoia. Like, I love insurance. I can't wait till I'm financially stable again to spend money on insurance. I know it's a scam and I completely agree, but I've seen way too many cases where insurance literally can save lives and protect you from. I think people walk around a little too confident that bad things will happen to them. And from doing law, bad things can happen to everyone. Don't think you're lucky. Nobody's lucky. Might be lucky to be alive in some situations, but I am grateful that I had that exposure that young in life. And I'm also grateful that I was young when I did debt collection. And I also saw the reality of debt and keeping up appearances and the banking system and credit cards. And technically, right now in my life, I have debt and I have credit card debt, but I don't think it's as bad as it would have been if I wasn't aware of this downfall. Like, I don't think mine is out of control. It was strategic, and yeah, I'm grateful for everything I experienced that young, even though it was not butterflies and rainbows, because it showed me that life is not butterflies and rainbows. It is storms and sunshine, and both come and both go.
Yeah.
You have nothing to add.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so saying all that to say, my master's, what did that teach me? That taught me that the more I know, the more chill I become. Not because I'm not severely concerned about how polluted my water sources are with microplastics. No, I'm aware that we've kind of pushed our earth systems beyond its capacity, but I'm more concerned. The more chill I become is because I learn that the only people who are truly going to suffer are human beings. And I don't know why that makes it better, because I am somebody who loves nature. I love oceans. I love the earth. I love rainforests. I love biodiversity. And yes, I'm very saddened that these things are suffering right now or reducing in quality. But at the end of the day, the only things that truly pay the price are human beings. Like, Earth has gone through severe biodiversity changes over millions of years, from dinosaurs to before humans were around. Its natural state is constant evolution. It evolves, it changes, it adapts. The system always finds balance. And that's something I have to tell myself every day. The system always finds balance. And if right now it feels out of balance, like, learning more about Earth systems and learning about how balanced balance kind of occurs has made me realize, girl, just go live your best life. Bad advice. Care about the environment, please. Reduce your pollution. Stop consuming. but still go live your best life because
It's hard to stop consuming. I don't even know if that's like the reason why I say it's hard is because the system is just not made like that. If you want people to stop consuming, then it has to start at a higher level. For example, you were telling me about a supermarket the other day where you can refill instead of having like, you know, one-time use plastics every time you go and buy stuff. Why not just have a container that you refill every time you need certain things? Like for example, rice. You can refill rice in the container and just pay for the amount you refilled. But that has to be an institution that's making progress in reducing the amount of plastics corporations are using. Actually, it's a government issue and a legal issue as well. But we don't enforce these things. And I find that what's scary about it is that if you see America as it stands, it's completely bought by the upper class. The whole government is bought by the upper class. So it's like they don't have the interests of the earth at heart, just their profits. So I don't necessarily see how it will change unless the rest of the population decides it's time that, you know, we make this change for ourselves and force the government to enforce it.
I mean, I know it will change at some point. I mean, the other day I was looking at all the plastic that I use as one person. And the scary thing is, I look at how much plastic I use as one person, and there are 8 billion people on this earth. That is ridiculous amounts of plastic. And I think, you know, at some point there will be a super cancer or super disease that is fueled by plastic. You cannot tell me not. Like, it is in your system, it is in your water, it is in your breast milk, it is in your entire being. And people don't understand how water works, or how sewage system works, how filtration works. And when I did my water and the environment course, I was disturbed for days, like figuring out water testing, water quality, water cycles, sewage treatment, and to think that like we have primary sewage treatment, but that's not taking out half the things that should be taken out. I don't know. I just started to get real. But sorry, getting back on track here. They will change. There will come a point where we've gone too far and we have no choice but to course correct. Will it be in my lifetime? Not really sure, but I just comfort myself with the fact that it has to change at some point, and it will. He's referencing a video that I showed him. He does that all the time, but there was this video by, I can't remember, I'm going to link it in the description though, that was talking about how all of the governance policies coming out of the US reflect the top 10% or 1% of, in terms of wealth. Most, if the wealthy want a policy, it will be passed. Whereas it doesn't matter what 99% of the American population want, their opinion is irrelevant. And, you know, for those who are politicians in the US, their biggest thing is that, I think on both sides, is bipartisan. The love of money and the influence of lobbyists has completely hijacked democracy. And it's now starting to rear its ugly head. And I think the American population is at a crossroads. And I look forward eagerly to seeing how they cross that bridge over the next couple of years, because even that Elon Musk thing with a tweet, that was wild. That was really wild. How is somebody tweeting on a social media platform and almost shutting down your entire government? How are you threatening politicians with your wealth? We've gone too far as a society. And I know we talk about the US way too much, but I live in the Caribbean and they're the greatest influence to everything we do over here based on proximity and wealth influence. So it is important to see what those people are up to.
Yeah. I feel like this was supposed to be a reflection video.
Right.
But my environmentalist wife decided to come out and educate y'all on, you know, the reality of our situation.
But it is a reflection because I finished my master's in natural resource and environmental management. So that was a huge part of my year. So I would advise everybody to read Homo Sapiens by Yuval Harari. I may be pronouncing his name incorrectly, but reading that book and expanding my timeline of what it means to be human, because I think often we have a very narrow perspective of what history is. We have a very narrow idea of what humanity means. And I took everything way too seriously. And when I scaled out and read the book from beginning to end, whether you agree or disagree, he just noted facts. Like these were major points in time where things changed. And I started to realize I am a mere mortal. I am a mere mortal. And as a mere mortal, I can't control anything. There's this illusion of control we have as human beings, which is another video I could link from Big Think, but I'll link that one too. And it was interesting. So I think this year was a year of me understanding that my perception is true, but my ideas about how to tackle it may not be correct. Yeah.
Yes. I feel like I have nothing else to say. My wife, when I bring her and we do this together, you will realize that she will be the one who does, like, let's say 75% of the talking.
That's not the point. And he also has this false assumption that I talk more than him. And I wish I had a secret camera in our house. Maybe I might do that. I might have a secret camera in our house to record the conversations, like the raw, unedited, unfiltered ones, for you to see that it's not just me. He too thinks and talks a lot.
I do. To be fair.
You should tell them about the things you've discovered this year.
The things I've discovered.
Sourdough bread, coffee.
Oh, she means my new hobbies.
And yeah.
So I started out the year with mainly one hobby, which was skating. But then my partner decided, I don't know, she didn't want to skate with me anymore. So then I didn't want to skate anymore because I felt kind of like abandoned, to put it lightly. But anyway, so then I discovered coffee in Canada. This was in like January earlier this year.
2023.
It was 2023? December?
2022 December, January 2023.
It's been that long?
It's been 2 years, yes.
Okay, so 2 years ago, I discovered coffee. And for some reason, this year, I took it a bit more to the next level, I would say. I started watching videos on people making espressos and cappuccinos, and I got into this guy called James Hoffman. And that inspired me to like up my coffee game, because apparently coffee can taste 10 times better depending on the type of water you use and if you grind the beans fresh. So for me, I was like, well, I need to taste the best of everything. I'm not satisfied with basic coffee. So instead of just buying like the coffee grounded, I was like, I'm gonna buy the whole beans and grind them myself. And then I bought a blade grinder, but then I heard, oh, that's not the best grinder anymore. You have to have a burr grinder, because to have even grounds, you need burrs to do it properly. So I bought a hand grinder that Dina brought for me from Canada.
Yeah.
And then I used that to grind my whole coffee beans fresh before I brew it. And then she had a friend come from Trinidad stay with us, and he bought me a French press. And then that was like, oh my gosh, this is like another level up, because it tasted so much better than my regular filtered coffee. And yeah, and then I discovered sourdough bread, because Dina went to Canada and had sourdough bread.
Yeah.
And she came back and was like, oh my God, you have to make sourdough bread for me. And I was like, okay, I'll try that. But before that, I was making focaccia. But no, I'm kind of tired of focaccia. Now I'm just baking sourdough bread like almost every week.
I think I describe him as my little garden. And when he has fertile ground, I kind of just plant the seeds and then he goes from there. Like, I wasn't like, hi, I need you to make sourdough bread. I didn't even think about it. When I was in, and I have to shout out my friend Antonia for this, because when we were in Canada living in the same apartment, she used to eat sourdough bread. And I was like, okay, there was a cute little bakery close to where we lived. And I started buying sourdough bread because, as somebody with IBS, I've always heard that sourdough bread is better for us because of the bacteria, and it aids in gut health because the bacteria in it aids in digestion. And it isn't as There's something in it that gets broken down, something like that.
Gluten gets broken down a lot more. The fermentation process is a bit more lengthy, and it has, besides the yeast, it has the bacteria as well, which helps break things down. Because when you bake it, the bacteria and the yeast dies, but they brought down enough of the gluten, and they also absorbed a lot of the nutrients and digested to produce a lot more iron and the good stuff.
Yes. So I started eating sourdough bread, and he saw me eating the sourdough bread. And then I saw him baking when I came home. I saw him baking the focaccia, and I was like, you could try sourdough. And he was like, okay. And I think what hooked him was the scientific element of the process. If it isn't technical or scientific, he usually wants no part to play in it. So when coffee just seemed like instant coffee, no. When it seemed like a science, so as much as I'm the one who spent 20 something years in school, he's the one who is more sciencey than me. I can get real flexible with how I do things. And that's why I prefer art. There's a level of precision needed, but there's also a level of it'll work out that, comes with it. He's different. Precision always for him.
Things need to be measured. Only when it's measured can you have repeatable, consistent results, and you can make the smallest changes and notice what those changes were that caused the difference. Because if you don't know what you changed, you don't know if it's repeatable or not.
I take the method of I'll figure it out. It's okay. I'll figure it out. Like it can't be that hard. And that's why we are different people. So yeah. So then the fertile ground of his brain, when he experiences things and he's curious, he would run with them. Like the coffee thing, when we went on vacation for our first anniversary, the Airbnb host had just left the coffee in the apartment for us. It wasn't even planned. And it was vanilla hazelnut, something coffee. So it had a really sweet aroma, and it wasn't like normal instant coffee. And that was that. So I love him and his hobbies. He's going more chefy of late, and I think maybe a career change may happen within the next couple years for him too. How exactly it's going to play out, I'm not sure. But yeah. So this year was the year of coffee and healing.
And sourdough.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a decent year. We were really broke though. So that was the only downside. But outside of financial instability, because he wasn't working and I was doing an internship and working part-time, it was actually a pretty peaceful year. And it just goes to show that a lot of happiness and a lot of peace is not necessarily tied to financial wealth, which is hard to tell people who think all of their problems come from a lack of money. But you could have millions, but if you are not in a mentally safe and sound place, like this year has been the happiest and most chill we have ever been, while also being the least money we have ever had. And that brings me to the thing about safety nets. Like throughout all of life before, we've kind of had safety nets, but this year we had no safety net. We were really just we were kind of just living. And yeah, it still was the least argumentative, the most cooperative, and the most loving we've been. So money and everything. I still want it though, but yeah.
Yeah. Money is for us signifies freedom and comfort. freedom to travel where you want, to have a house that you're comfortable in. That's all it is. But to have the peace of mind, that also helps. But to be at peace is a different story. We could be really comfortable and still be really miserable. So
Yeah, this was a year of finding at peace. Though last year we did wreak havoc. And in another video we would have to go through 2023, the year we chose violence. It was a beautiful year, but it was violent. But it was beautiful. But yeah, hopefully 2025. I think that's a good way to.
2025 is a 9 when you add up the numbers.
It is. We're going into our, this was our 9-year anniversary. 3 years married, 9 years together on December 21st of this year. And 2025, we just want to continue the at peace and add the financial stability while also planting the seeds of freedom. What do you want for 2025?
Money. Yeah, glow. Yeah, definitely stable finances, but I don't necessarily. We may have plans for ourselves, but the universe or God, whatever you want to believe in, usually has plans for us. So I didn't plan this year to be transformative or healing, but it just ended up that way. And I believe in astrology, so I look at my pattern a lot sometimes. And I see that next year could possibly bring a lot of, I would say, community and possibly wealth, but we'll see.
I too am an astrology person. Do with that what you will. But 2025 has always been a year that anybody who studies astrology has been looking forward to, because every major planet changes sign this year. And that doesn't usually happen in 1 year. So next year is going to be interesting, not just individually, but collectively. But the signs of that are already happening right now with Germany, Canada, France, South Korea, with so many governments on the edge of collapse or teetering to the edge of collapse, with, there being an uptick in war in the Middle East, with the Assad regime being toppled, with Israel's actions in the Middle East becoming very problematic and more problematic as the months go by, with, their relationship with Lebanon and Iran. So there's just a lot of activity. Europe, it's also changing in terms of their relationships with Russia, Ukraine, UK, Brexit. Like everything is shifting. We're seeing BRICS forming, which is, a new coalition. We're seeing Trump deciding to play hardball with China, and China being like, let's go. Yeah, bitch, we're ready for you. And I am so excited to see how these games that already, like, the chess pieces are on the board, and I think they're going to start really moving next year. And I'm excited to just watch, like popcorn, like with popcorn. I just want to watch. I think before I would have been like, oh no, the world's in turmoil, I need to fix it. I am not a god. I have to trust in God and trust in people that we will eventually find our way. And so 2025?
It's the age of Aquarius, so it's a time for revolution. Revolution, yeah.
Revolution is going to be the word. But the beautiful thing about astrology is that you don't actually know what's going to happen. You might know the energy or you might know the theme, but the actual sequence of events, nobody knows. You can't tell the future, you can't predict the future, which is the beautiful thing about it. But you can kind of have a sense of the major themes that are going to arise.
So there's all about influence. The celestial bodies, the universe, we're living in a connective space. everything is technically connected and everything influences each other. So we know the influence that, astrology might have on the planet, but we don't know exactly how the events will play out. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2025 for me personally, I am currently at a point where my instinct is to do more academia because that's where I excel. That's where I think I can find stability. That is where it makes sense. But then there's a part of me that wants to try new things, to test other avenues, because I don't think academia is going anywhere, but I am young and I am yet to see. There's still a lot for me to explore and find out. So I have on my vision board for next year that I want to take risks, try new things. Financial stability, yes. Physical strength, I lost so much strength over the last year and a half because I wasn't at the gym or doing any exercise, and I'm a very active person. I just couldn't get it done while I was working and doing my master's. So those two are within my control. I can control paying off debt. Well, I can't control if he works, but if he does work, we can control paying off debt. We can control our physical bodies, and I can set the intention to take the risk, but that one is outside of my control. I'm just setting a very strong intention that is what I would like to develop or explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the longest video I've ever done. But I guess it makes sense. Usually my videos are like 20 minutes long, but because she's here, it's 40 minutes long. So it tracks.
Podcast. But anyway, thank you for joining on episode 1. I think we talked about a lot of random and varied things.
As her brain goes.
My brain. Yours, darling.
Sorry. I like to think myself as more on track, but I could be completely wrong.
The higher the monkey climb, the more you see tail, right? So the more videos we do, a picture will start to form. Don't worry about it.
Yes. But that's it from me. Do you have anything else to say?
Nope, that is it for me. Sourdough, coffee, healing, brokenness, hope, peace.
Thank y'all for watching. Have an awesome day.
Bye.